Forgive us just as we forgive other people when they hurt us. Rescue us. We need you. We don't want to keep running away and hiding from you. Keep us safe from our enemies. You're strong, God. You can do whatever you want. You are in charge, now and forever, and for always. We think you're great. Amen. Yes, we do. You see, Jesus was showing people that God would always love them with a never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. So they didn't need to hide anymore or be afraid or ashamed. They could stop running away from God and they could run to Him instead, as a little child runs into her daddy's arms.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? Pretty good. Thanks, Jason, for reading that to us. Way to go. You guys hear me all right? I can't hear you, so I don't know. You got a green light? Can you hear me now? I can hear myself now. Good morning. See, now you can hear me. You respond. Thanks, Jason, for reading that for us this morning. Now, some of you may have noticed it's been a few weeks since I've been up here, and the last few weeks I've noticed some new faces in the crowd, so I just kind of want to reintroduce myself for any of those of you who don't know me. My name is Jubal, and I'm one of the elders here at the church. My wife, Kaylee's in the back over there with our brood of children. And the reason that you haven't seen me up here is because we've been blessed with a fifth child. In the middle of December, we had Eleanor Dorothy Handrich, and so we've been enjoying her over the past few weeks, and I've taken a little break from speaking until I can finally talk Kaylee into letting me come back up here and speak. So that was our fifth daughter. For those of you who don't know, we had to keep in line with the Haynes so that everything stays balanced. 5 sons and 5 daughters, so we can't cause problems with that. But Kaylee and I are still recovering a bit from that. We are trying to get as much sleep as we can, but you all know how that goes. But we just want to thank the church as a whole and all the individuals who have blessed us over these last weeks, bringing meals and gifts and more than we could have ever asked for. We just thank you guys a lot for the generosity and just the blessings that you have all been to us. And the other thing I wanted to do before we dive into this morning's topic is just thank everyone who's been willing to speak over the last weeks. Lowell and Wally and Kyle, and I'm sure I missed people, but I just thank you guys for your willingness to step up and do that. And it's just been a joy to hear all the different people who have been willing to share what God has put on their hearts. It's always wonderful to see these different perspectives and things that people pull out of verses that I never would see, and it's great to see that. And I also want to put an invitation, if you're feeling so inclined, we're always looking for more people to come up in pulpit fill as we're looking for a pastor. So if that's something you're interested in, please come talk to me. And if it's something you're not interested in, well, talk to God about it first, and then come talk to me after He tells you should be interested in it, and we can work something out. So this morning, the bulletin said James because I wanted to leave myself pretty open on what exactly I was going to talk about. Because at the time I gave it for the bulletin, I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about with James. But I decided on James 5, verse 7. So if you want to open up your Bibles to James 5, verse 7, that's where we're going to start. But before I read that and go into it, I just want to tell you all a little story. And maybe some of you have heard this or not, but I felt like this lined up pretty well with these verses and some of the different things that I want to talk about. So the story goes that one day there was a fisherman, and he was lying on this beautiful beach with his fishing pole propped up in the sand and his line out in the water. He was just enjoying the warmth and the afternoon sun, and maybe he might catch a fish. And at about the time he was there was all of a sudden this businessman who came walking down to the beach. Now, he was trying to relieve some of the stress of his work and life and everything going on with him, and he noticed this fisherman sitting on the beach, and he decided to go out and talk to this fisherman and see what was going on, why he's just laying on the beach in the middle of the day fishing. And so he goes out there, and "You're not going to catch very many fish fishing that way," the businessman said to him. You should be working rather than just lying on the beach." And the fisherman kind of looks up at him like, "What is this guy?" But he responds, "Well, if I work, what will be my reward? What will I get out of this work that you're talking about?" And the businessman, quick to answer, is like, "Well, if you fish right, you can catch way more fish." And so the fisherman says, "Well, okay, so I catch more fish. Then what do I get out of that? What will be my reward from that?" And the businessman replies, "Well, if you catch more fish, then you'll make more money, right? Maybe you can buy a boat to go fish with at that point." And the fisherman says again, "Well, what comes after that? What will be my reward from having a boat that I can fish with?" And the businessman was kind of getting a little irritated about him always saying, "Well, kind of why?" But he said, "Well, maybe you get a boat and then you catch a bunch of fish and you can get a bigger boat. Maybe you can start paying people to fish for you, that they can catch fish and you can make even more money from this." And the fisherman just calmly replies, "Okay, so then what will be my reward after that?" The businessman finally was getting angry about it. "Don't you get it? You can have all these boats that go all over the world and catch all these fish for you, and you can just make all this money. You won't have a care in the world. Heck, you could lay on this beach all day fishing without a care to do it." And the fisherman looks up and says, "All right, I'll keep doing what I'm doing then." And with that, let's take a moment to pray, and then we'll dive into James chapter 5. So, God, we just thank you for this opportunity again to join together and to look into your word. We pray that you would give us wisdom as we pull out what it is you have for us. We pray that your spirit would just come over us, that it would open our eyes and ears and hearts to the things you have for us this morning. We just thank you for this church and the blessing that it is, and we pray that as we come together that we would just truly glorify you, God. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name, amen. So James chapter 5, verse 7, let's get started here. It says, "Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming." Now we'll read until verse 9. It says, "See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door." Now, James begins here, "Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming." And that piece right there is why I wanted to talk about this. I knew I wanted to talk about James, but as I was reading through it and I got to this verse, I was like, all right, that's what I need to talk about this morning. And right off the bat, this "be patient, the Lord's coming," but all these things, we have a lot to unpack because James doesn't really give us anything in regards to this "be patient." But let's think for a second about the people James would have been writing this to. How long did they have to be patient for? How long did they wait for the Lord's coming? It was their whole life, right? If we look around, the Lord hasn't come back yet. They're still maybe waiting for the Lord's coming. They're still being patient. So those people were required to be patient, to wait for the Lord's return for their whole life. And if we carry this through then to us, there's a lot of people we know who were patient and waited for the Lord's coming for their whole life too, weren't they? If we carry this through to us, how are we supposed to be patient until death? Until the end? I thought we were supposed to wait for the Lord's coming. But what does this patience actually look like then? How do we live our whole lives to the point of death with this be patient until the Lord's coming? Now, patience, it can have a lot of different facets to it, but when I was looking at this, I kind of wanted to compare it to a family taking a trip. Some of you may be familiar with this concept. And as you're driving from, I don't know, Michigan to Colorado or Florida or Denver, or not Denver, I guess, another state, Massachusetts maybe, I don't know. You hear your kids in the back of the car, and what do they ask? Anybody know? Is my kids the only ones? Are we there yet? Ruby, what do you ask? Yeah. She's good about that one. And as the parent, what are you constantly reminding your child? Be patient. We're almost there. We'll get there soon enough. Just hang on. The big thing we just always tell our kids is it's only five more minutes. And they ask again, it's 5 more minutes. We'll be there in 5 minutes. And they don't always appreciate that, but that's what we do. But we're telling our kids to be patient. Why? Generally because they're not being patient, because this trip is more than they can handle, They're constantly asking us how much longer, or complaining that my sister keeps hitting me, or the car smells funny, or whatever it might be. They feel trapped, They're restrained in their seats with all sorts of things, hindered by whatever it is that's holding them down. And all the time, all the while, they're dreaming of this moment when they can finally be free of the car after this trip that's taken so long, 15 minutes to the store or something like that. It's more than they can bear. They're dreaming of this moment when they can break out and enjoy the destination that they're supposed to arrive at. And maybe this gives you an idea of what James is talking about with patience here. Because though we resonate from the parents' perspective, we were all children once, weren't we? We were all waiting for that trip to end as we drove to Grandma's house for Christmas, or as we took a grand vacation somewhere. We were the ones asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? I mean, it wasn't that long ago for me that I was doing that. But let's move forward beyond this a little bit, because after this be patient, James gives us an example to look at. He says, be patient as the farmer who waits for the rain. In verse 7 he says, see how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. James is saying, be patient for the right time. This time will come. The rains will come, and you can't rush it because you're not in control of it. You just have to wait. You just have to be patient. And maybe in that time frame that you're waiting, you can rest a little bit. Have you ever been so excited about something that you've exhausted yourself before you even got to enjoy this thing you were excited about? You were so amped up and ready to go that you couldn't barely wait for it, and then by the time it came, you couldn't barely enjoy it because you had ruined everything up to that point. Instead of resting and patiently waiting, you jumped ahead and you ruined the enjoyment of it all. But I love the example of the farmer here because, as some farmers may know, the weather is completely out of their control. They don't decide when the spring or fall rains come. God ultimately sends the rain. We have a lot of people here who have gardens and things like that, and we might bring hoses out and do what we can to provide for them, but we all know innately that God sends the rain. And when does he send it? He sends it exactly when he needs to. we wait on him. If we look through the Bible, especially Proverbs, it talks many places or many times about the farmer and about God working and how they have to interact with him. And Paul, he speaks about it, this farmer or this crop in 1 Corinthians in regards to the salvation of man. Paul says, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God made it grow. You see, it's neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. Now, if we jump back to the verse, we see that the farmer must wait. He waits on the rain, on God's movement. And in that waiting, he can rest. He can rest in the Lord. Jesus, he said to all of us as Christians, he says, come to me, all of you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. But Christianity isn't all just rest. It's not all just waiting. It's not all just being patient for the rain to come. Because the rain has things that need prepped for it. Just like farming isn't all just waiting. Is it, Wally? You don't just wait. That's not all you're doing while you're farming. You have work that you're doing up to this crop that needs to be worked with. We see Jesus when he walked on the earth. He had times of great healing, of performing wondrous miracles, but he also had times of fasting, of sneaking away to be with his Father, of resting. He was patient for what the Father had for him, and multiple times he said, it's not the right time for me. He said, my time has not yet come. But when the time was right for him, what did he do? He was willing to lay his own life down. He was willing to commit to the ultimate form of sacrifice. And ultimately, we are called to the same fate as Christians. We're called at moments to rest in our Father, but we're also called to plant, to work, to prepare. So when the rain does come, it has something to water. God has given us all a role to play. And if we're either too busy prepping for these things of this world or too lazy ignoring God's call, we can't fulfill the role that he has in us as we prep the ground or whatever it is. You know, as Paul plants the seed and Apollos waters, we have those same roles to plant and to water and then allow God to make things grow. That launches us into verse 8, which says, you too be patient and stand firm, for the Lord's coming is near. Now it's kind of similar to verse 7, but it introduces a little bit something new here, this new idea, this idea of stand firm. And we see this all sorts of other places in the Bible. What does it mean? What does it mean to stand firm? When would standing firm be a necessary thing that we must do? Well, commonly when you would think about standing firm, it would be when something was coming against you. Maybe you were being attacked. If you think of this idea of attack, we have two choices in attacking, right? We can either fight or we can flight. We can battle or we can flee. We can charge or we can retreat. And standing firm does not allow for retreating. It says to fight. It doesn't say charge into battle, perhaps, but says when the battle comes to you, stand firm. But what are we fighting against? Who is attacking us? Maybe that's a dumb question to ask right now. Because I look around at our world today and wonder who isn't attacking us. Where aren't the Christians being attacked from right now? As God-fearing, Bible-believing Christians, we feel pressed on every side. It says the end times will have wars and rumors of wars. Well, we've got those, and those are getting more and more prevalent every day. The media attacks Christianity. We have the government, who just recently coined this wonderful phrase some of you may have heard, a man and a woman, because you got to keep things equal. We have all of these things. Jesus getting kicked out of schools. And the list of this attacking of Christianity goes on and on. We don't want this next generation to even know that God exists. We're pressed on every side. And even within the church, we see the same problems. We see this divisiveness amongst denominations and all these other places. So how, with all of these things attacking us, can we possibly win? How can we stand firm against all of these things? I mean, as Christians, we don't necessarily have a choice, do we? We have to stand firm, but if we want to win, we need more than just ourselves standing firm. We need a solid foundation to stand on. We have to stand firm on the rock of our salvation, on our everlasting Father, our Prince of Peace. When our lives are rooted in Christ, when we stand firm in Him, we are then the wise man who built his house upon the rock. We have the rains of life that come down against us, but our house can stand firm. Standing firm on Christ will bring attacks because we can't retreat. We can't flee. We have to stand up against what it is that's coming against us. But when we stand firm on Him, we don't have to fear losing. We don't have to fear the problems that come from this world. We have only to enjoy the goodness that comes with Christ. But what is our tendency? How do we typically respond? Instead of enjoying the victory we can have in Christ, what do? Well, we look around at everyone else, at everything else. Maybe we become jealous of someone else. Maybe we become envious. Maybe we start to grumble, start to complain, and wish and hope and want for all these other things. We see our neighbor with the bigger house and we want it. We want the newer car, the fancier phone. We lose our desire to stand firm on Christ. And instead, we desire to stand firm on things of this world. We choose to work ourselves to the bone to get all of these things. Maybe a nice new house. Maybe a nice new car. But what should we be doing? What is my response when someone asks how life is going for me? When I'm standing on Christ, life is going well, but when I'm standing on the things that this world tries to fill me with, maybe life is busy. Maybe life is overwhelming. Maybe it's swamped. We get ourselves into places where maybe we haven't slept in weeks because the stress of life is the foundation that we've chose to live on. And when that happens, life becomes this constant struggle that we can't get out from under. So we have to dive further and further into this world to try and find a way through it. Maybe it's these payments that we can't get over. So we have to work more and more. Maybe it's that we just don't have time for the things that are important to us. And that drives us deeper into this pit. And all the while we look around at everyone else and everything else in this world. And they make it look easy. They make it look fine. They make the foundation that they're standing on look secure. But it's not. We have to get ourselves to a place where we're standing on the foundation of Christ. We have to find ourselves in this place where we build our whole life on the foundation of Him. Because if we build our lives on the foundation of this world, we can see how quickly it crumbles, how quickly it deteriorates. Looking around at the world today, at everything going on, we see how quickly things can fall into disarray and chaos. That is the world. If we allow these things to bog us down, then we put ourselves into a constant situation of trouble, a place that constantly brings us this question of what's it all for? Why am I doing these things? What am I getting out of this? Because the foundation of this world is jealousy, it's envy, it's trouble. But we have more than that choice. When we find ourselves in these situations where the world is the foundation that we're standing on, it's because often we've forgotten to stand on the rock that is Christ. We forget where our life is truly rooted. We forget what foundation is really sound. Maybe we forget who created the heavens and the earth. And the lies this world constantly throws at us. Maybe that this vacation will bring me joy or rest, or this toy or thing will finally fulfill me. It will finally be a foundation worth standing on. But when we get to that point, me and Kaylee have been watching a lot of Dr. Pol lately, and maybe some of you are familiar with that. But every time a new calf is born on that, they take a big bucket of cold water and whoosh, right over the cow's head to shock it and wake it up. Because when we find ourselves with this foundation of the world, we need this big bucket of cold water to give us a reality check, a moment of authentication. And maybe it's people storming the Capitol. Maybe that was your bucket of water to wake you up. This world is not a foundation that we can stand on. Christ is the only foundation that we can stand on. And when we choose to do that, we find ourselves a worthy thing to be in relationship with. And let's move then to verse 9. Verse 9 tells us why we need to have this foundation. Verse 9 says, "You will be judged." The judge is standing at the door. We will all be judged, and it will be based on the foundation that we are standing on. We can stand on the things in this world, maybe the job we had, the positions we held, how much money we made, how many Facebook friends we have, whether we were a libertarian or Republican or socialist or Democrat. But guess what? There's only one thing that we can stand on that will allow us to stand firm before that judge, and that's Jesus Christ. His blood that was shed on Calvary is the only thing that we can stand on. Not our government, not our family, not our community, not even our church, but just Jesus. When this world brings us to the point of being overwhelmed, our options should be clear to grab on to Jesus, to let him be a firm foundation under our feet, to let ourselves rest on the rock of our salvation. And all of this ties together how, you may ask? Well, I'm pretty sleep deprived now, so I'm not positive, but as we rest in Christ, it ties into our need of having him, or our needing of him for salvation. As I said earlier, life feels like it's on a knife's edge. Maybe some of you disagree, and that's probably because you're standing smack dab on the center of Christ, and that's great. That's right where we should be. But when we stand on this world, we're teetering back and forth. We don't have a firm foundation to get on. Maybe some of you stay up all night watching the news, trying to figure out what's going to happen. Maybe this knife's edge that you're living on is that your Facebook mysteriously gets hacked and you feel a little bit different about all of these things that the world hands you to just use and have. I'm yelling at you, if you're standing on this knife's edge, stop it. Stop standing there. I'm telling myself, quit allowing this world to make itself our foundation. Jesus is coming soon. And if you claim Christ as your Lord, then ultimately this place is not your home. This world is not a foundation that you can claim. We must stand firm in him. And the reason that we can rest in him is because rest is something that this world doesn't truly understand. And as Christians, it's one of our greatest assets in preaching the gospel. This patience, this peace that we can find, that James is telling these people to have, this rest in Christ. As Christians, in preaching the gospel, this is one of the greatest things that we can share with people. You know, Jesus preached the forgiveness of sins, and he preached the promise of a light yoke. The world, it loads everything it can on you. It's constantly trying to weigh you down with troubles and pains and problems. But Jesus, he forgives. He removes the weight from you. He says, take my yoke, for my burden, or my yoke is light and my burden is easy. He allows you to stand again, to stand on him, to not let this world hold you down. And when we use this rest that we find in Christ, we can use this to be a light in this time of turmoil. As we boldly preach repentance and the freedom and the rest that we can find in Christ. Worship team.